So welcome everyone to our webinar this evening. The title is Take Control, Inspiring Tools and Tips for Becoming Your Own Diabetes Coach. We're so happy you could join us this evening. Should you have any technical difficulties, there is a number to call at the bottom of the screen. Call Citrix Support at 1-800-263-6317. Our format includes a short presentation followed by an interactive discussion. Back it up one slide.
Sorry.
It's okay. There we go. So to type in a question, use the question section of the webinar toolbar. At the end, you'll have a chance to ask questions. So we look forward to an interactive webinar. Just a disclaimer, we know that the information you're about to hear may motivate you to make lifestyle changes, so please consult your physician before making any changes to your current routine. The Cecilia Health Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialist will provide strategies to help you manage your diabetes. This online Q&A session is intended to give general advice. This information is not a substitute for personal medical advice and involves the professional opinion of the Cecilia Health Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialist. Our speaker or our webinar leader this evening is Teresa Grasso. She's a registered dietitian and a certified diabetes care and education specialist. She's been working in the nutrition field for over 20 years and has specialized in diabetes care for the last 10. She resides in New Jersey with her husband and 3 girls. She leads an active life with her family as they are involved in multiple sports and activities. She's passionate about nutrition and leading a healthy lifestyle and enjoys teaching others how to improve their health. So thank you so much for being with us, Teresa, and sharing your expertise this evening. So you may take it away.
Thank you, Katie. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. So as Katie mentioned, tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about managing and taking control of your diabetes. So the agenda tonight will include why problem solving is important. We're going to review various aspects of how we can do our own problem solving and making living with diabetes easier to help get that blood glucose under good control. We want to look at how our attitude and our mindset plays a role in making sure we are working towards achieving the goal of having good blood glucose control and good self-management. We want to look at where we can find information and seek support when caring for our own diabetes. We'll look at some problem-solving tools, how to put that problem-solving into action, and then, of course, we'll have some questions and answers and sharing at the end. So you'll be able to ask questions at the end of the presentation. Again, just please talk with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your diabetes treatment plan. So why is problem solving so important? And why is this an important skill to have? So we know that our diabetes needs change every day. Stress is something that can play a big role in our blood sugars. And by stress, we're talking about emotional stress. We're talking about stress on the body. So could be stress because you have an infection or an illness, something going on. And that can play a role in your blood sugars. Medication changes. So not only thinking about diabetes medications, but other medications you might be on, maybe cold medications, maybe if you have asthma, you may be on steroids. So those medications can affect our blood sugar. Changes in physical activity. You know, there's periods of time where maybe you're exercising more, and then periods of time where exercise may be less. So think, winter versus summer months, there could be some changes. With the pandemic going on right now, COVID, people are a lot less active, a lot less of even our everyday activity of maybe we used to go to the store 3, 4 times a week, and now we're only going to the store once or twice a month or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of changes in activity level, and that can really affect our blood sugar. Um, diabetes needs also change gradually over time. So we think about our lifestyle changes, um, different periods of time in our life, maybe retirement being one. Maybe with retirement, some people might be more sedentary. They're not moving around as much. Or it could be the flip side of that. Maybe somebody had a very active job, and now that they've retired, their activity level is less. So that could be a big change and might result in changes in the blood sugar. So that needs to be thought about and looked at. Um, Body changes can happen with age. As we age, sometimes, especially women, we lose a lot of muscle mass. So the body may have a little more fat than it did before, and that can play a role in our blood sugars. Over time, diabetes is a progressive disease. So the pancreas loses its ability to make enough insulin. So it might mean that there needs to be some changes to food choices and what foods we're eating because of the body's change in its insulin production might mean that we need to just restrict or cut back a little on some things in our diet. So sometimes this can seem a little overwhelming, kind of sounds like a lot, all these changes that can go on. But what we want to think about, there's most of the time these situations have a solution. So it may just be attacking these things a little differently than you have before. It might be, thinking creatively, what can I do now? What can I do to kind of figure out what's going on? My blood sugar all of a sudden is going up. What's going on differently? So one thing we'll talk about a little more later on in the presentation is keeping diaries. Can be again overwhelming, but that's a really good thing to do, to keep a good diary of your food intake, your activity, things like that, to really pinpoint what's going on. And it might be a little trial and error to see, okay, what's working now, what isn't working now. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. So it's all about perspective. What we want to think about is we want to be willing to try some new approaches. Maybe things we used to do in the past that worked are not working anymore. So we have to be open to wanting to try some new things. We have to kind of believe that the problem is there and that we need to think about how we're going to solve that problem. And we want to have a positive attitude when we're talking about figuring out what's going on and being open to exploring different things. So again, a little bit of that trial and error. For example, maybe you were somebody who never ate breakfast, and I haven't eaten breakfast in 20 years, and now all of a sudden you're retired, things have changed, and those blood sugars are not really where they used to be. And maybe a suggestion to you by your diabetes educator or your doctor is to start with having breakfast. So again, might not be something that you were used to doing, but when we're looking at it, and it could be something that helps your overall health and nutrition intake, and in turn can help those blood sugars, that might be something that maybe you need to consider doing. Or maybe thinking of timing of meals, maybe with schedule changes, different work schedule, maybe you're eating dinner a little later than you used to, and now you're finding that those blood sugars are rising. So what can we do with our schedule to make sure that those blood sugars aren't going up? So it might be thinking about a way to change the times of your meals and see if that helps with blood sugar control. So just kind of thinking about different things like that, and kind of thinking of it as a little mini experiment sometimes. So things that you might change, they might work, and sometimes they might not work. So we just have to be comfortable with the fact that we're going to kind of explore these things and see what's going to work for you and what might not work for you. And then, kind of just take control of that. So the good thing is that we need to remember it's all about teamwork. So this is not going to be something that you want to approach by yourself. You're always going to look to your healthcare professionals to kind of help you. And again, if we're trying to figure out what's going on and figure out how to make changes, they're going to be the best people to kind of talk to and work with to make sure, you're getting on the right track with your blood sugars. So that's going to include your doctor, your diabetes educator, your dietitian. So, make an appointment with them, talk to them at your next scheduled appointment. I know right now with everything going on, some appointments are over the phone, telehealth appointments. Some are, email. Some doctors allow you to email them, dietitians, educators. If you're in the Cecilia Health Program, your health coach can really help you work on some of these things. So just kind of be open about it and discuss exactly what you're looking to achieve and trying to get your blood sugars under good control. There's also many support groups. So sometimes it's really good to talk to people who are going through the same thing as you. So speaking with other people who have diabetes and they might be going through some of the same things, or maybe they went through it before in the past, and they can kind of give you some insight in what worked and didn't work for them. But just remember, everybody is different. So what works for some people may not work for others. And you do have to be careful when talking to people. Sometimes people follow things that are a little unconventional. So always, talk to your doctor, your diabetes educator, if there's anything you're changing, or, you hear from somebody in your support group or a friend, just run it by a healthcare professional and make sure it's something that's safe for you to do. So any kind of remedies or anything like that people may discuss, you want to make sure, you run it by your healthcare professional. And again, some support groups are not going on right now, but there is a lot on the internet, and you can Facebook groups for diabetes are out there, and you can look up on this website, community.diabetes.org/home, and that's a good resource for getting into some of these support groups and maybe seeing what's on the internet that you can kind of connect with people. You can also ask when you go to your doctor's appointment next if the doctor knows of any support groups. A lot of the hospitals have support group programs for diabetes, so definitely ask when you're there also. Okay, and where do we find this information that we need? So we definitely need to make sure we're going to reliable sources. We all know the internet is great and it gives us a lot of great information, but there's also a lot of bad and false information out there. So with diabetes, we want to make sure you are going to reliable sources. So the National Diabetes Education Program, if you plug that into your computer, that will give you a lot of great information. A lot of the reliable sources are going to end in .org or .gov. So that's a good rule when you're looking things up. large healthcare organizations and pharmaceutical companies do have a lot of good information for diabetes. So the Joslin Diabetes Center is one of them. The Mayo Clinic, American Diabetes Association has a really great website. It's diabetes.org, and you can get a lot of good information there. You can get nutrition information, exercise information, some recipes. So that's a really great source to have. You can also subscribe to national diabetes magazines. The Diabetes Forecast is one, Diabetes Health is another, Diabetes Self-Management is another one of those magazines that are available, and most are inexpensive, somewhere around $10 to $15 a year if that's something you're interested. If you like those print magazines, they have a lot of great information. They have a lot of great recipes in them. So that's another option. You can also look on that website, thediabetes.org. You can look for local diabetes associations. So you would just go to that website, go to In My Community, and then click on local offices, and it'll give you some local resources in your area. So that's a good place to check too. Of course, the library is a good resource for us all. Some of the libraries are closed right now, but you can, a lot of them have like pickups. You know, if you called the library and said, I want a diabetes cookbook, or I'm looking for a diabetes book on complications, or I want to know more about exercise, you know, the librarian can look those up for you, and or you can go on, a lot of times go on the library's website and be able to look up the books too. And you know, I know my local library, if I call, if there's a book that I want, she'll put it out for me, give her my library number, and I can just swing by and pick it up right now while the library is closed. Your doctor's office, your healthcare professional, your CDE, if you see the educator in the clinic, they also have a lot of good resources too. So they should have some printed material for you. Again, those pharmaceutical companies have a lot of good printed material that they give to these doctor's offices and clinics. So that's another place to look for some good information. Okay, so I touched on this a little bit, but when we look at tools to help problem solve, so the number one thing that we can do is keep records. So I know sometimes people find this annoying to track everything they're eating, you know, track everything they're doing, but it is a really great way to see what's going on. So even if you take 2 weeks or so, and what you want to do is just keep a really good record. What we want to find out is and understand is, how are these foods affecting my blood sugar? We want to look for trends. Are there certain times of the day the blood sugar is going up or down? Is the blood sugar high after certain foods that you're eating? Is there a midday point of day where you start craving sugars or chocolates? So all these kind of things we want to write down. And, you know, we know that studies show that people who keep good food records are more successful at losing weight and keeping it off also. So I know, you know, a lot of people oftentimes are trying to lose weight along with controlling their blood sugar. So these record keeping can be useful for both of those things. And what you want to do is try to record as much as possible. So we want to know on those records what you're eating, when you're eating, how much, what's the portion size, what did you drink in the day. We want to look at especially those carbohydrates. What's the portion of those carbohydrates? Was any alcohol consumed? You want to know what medications were taken and how much medications were taken. Are there times that medications are missed? And then that sometimes, oh, I'm missing that medication. That's why my blood sugar went up. So, you know, jotting down the times you take your medication. Exercise. So writing down the time you do the exercise, the duration of the exercise, and what the exercise was. Was it a walk? Was it weightlifting? Did you jog? Did you go to the gym? Is it chair exercises you're doing at home? So just try to write down exactly what you're doing. Um, and also keep some notes. Was there some stress going on? You know, were you not feeling good? Did you have a cold that day? You know, whatever kind of is going on, where you know, if you had some GI symptoms, you know, kind of jot down any illnesses you might have had. If you're taking any vitamins or supplements, put that on there. And then, of course, we need to have those blood sugar readings too. So we want to have the two things. We want to have this food activity log, this log of how we're feeling, and we want to have those blood sugar readings. So we want to put them all together to kind of see what's going on and what trends we might be able to see. Um, log books are available at a lot of the meter companies. So if you use Contour or One Touch, you can oftentimes get a log book from them. You can just do an old-fashioned notebook where you're writing down everything. If you go on the internet, you can plug in, you know, logbook or food log, and things will pop up and you can print something out to use. You can probably ask at your doctor's office or the clinic you go to if they have any logs that you can use to keep records. And then if you do use a smartphone or your computer, there's a lot of different apps that you can use too. So instead of doing the old-fashioned writing it, you can type those things in. So like MyFitnessPal is a good one that has a food diary on there, and they have, you know, obviously you'd be recording your exercise too, but there's a lot of different apps. So you can kind of look through that and see what's going to work for you, what's going to help you keep the best records. Okay, so if we look at problem solving in action, so this is just a little case study. So we have Sarah here. Sarah has type 2 diabetes and she takes oral medications. Recently, she's changed jobs, and her new job, she feels a little self-conscious about checking her blood sugars. So she hasn't been checking them at work. When she gets home, she's finding that her blood sugar is a little higher than she wants it to be. And she's trying to figure out, you know, ways to control her blood sugar. So she has a lot of change going on. She started this new job. With that probably comes some stress. With that probably came a little bit of change in her schedule. So what is she finding? These shifts in her day-to-day has led to her blood sugar going up a little bit. So what do we need to do? Again, we need to be positive. We need to know, okay, I'm going to attack this problem and I'm going to try to solve it. And what we need to look at is what's making that blood sugar go up. So we know we don't have that lunchtime blood sugar reading to kind of help us right now to see, okay, was the blood sugar high before lunch or after lunch? What's going on in that midday time? We don't know right now because we're not getting that blood sugar till she gets home. So what do we want Sarah to do? We want her to keep a record. So a really good idea is if she's going to take the next week or so and she's going to write down her food intake, she's going to write down her exercise, she's going to, you know, jot down any stress or illness that's going on, and we're going to try to get her to check her blood sugars and keep records of those. So prior to this new job, what we found out from Sarah is that she used to eat lunch at a consistent time every day. Right now, we know that she's under a little more stress while learning her new job, and her new job is a little more sedentary than she was before. So these are all things that can be contributing to those higher blood sugar readings. So what Sarah did is spoke with her certified diabetes educator, and we tried to think about ways to get that afternoon blood sugar because we really want to know what's going on in that midday. So the meter she had was a larger meter. So again, she was a little uncomfortable at this new job, checking her blood sugars. So we obtained a smaller, faster meter for her. And then she checked her blood sugar in the bathroom for privacy. So she wasn't out in the open. She didn't have to tell anybody right now. She just went to the bathroom and checked it. Um, and then we looked at her physical activity. Um, was she doing now? So this new job, she was a little more sedentary. She was also a little more stressed. So what can we do to combat those two things? So one thing we can think about is getting a little more activity in. We can park a little further from the office in the morning. So this way there's a little more activity in the morning. There's stairs in the office, so we can walk 2 flights of stairs to use the copier on a different floor at least a couple times a day, and that would get her moving a little more in that midday. And then maybe at lunch, that would be a time to go for a quick 15-minute walk. Um, it's at work, if you're able, if you find yourself sitting for a couple hours, even just getting up and walking around the office, or like this, taking part of your lunch at least and getting a little exercise, going for a walk, doing something to get moving. Sometimes people can't do that, depends on what their job is. So maybe it would entail waking up a little bit earlier to get a walk in, or maybe it's taking 15 minutes at the end of the day to go for that walk. But definitely during the day, just doing little things to get a little more exercise. If it's a desk job, maybe it's raising your legs up and down while you're sitting. Maybe it's doing some arm movements when you're at your desk, but just always thinking about where can I add in this little bit of exercise. So we don't have to say, I'm going to take my whole lunch break and just exercise. Carve out little pieces of time, 15 minutes to devote to yourself. And that little 15-minute walk will probably help with the stress relief too. So another thing for stress relief is practicing some breathing exercises. So just kind of taking a few minutes, if high stress levels, taking a few deep breaths, maybe closing your eyes for a few minutes, a little bit of like silent meditation, but just taking a step back and realizing, okay, I need to calm down. I can take a few breaths, get myself under better control, and just try to help with that little bit of stress relief. So some of these things, put them all together and they helped lower the blood sugar. So we want to try to incorporate that into our daily routine. Sometimes it might be planning these things on your calendar. It might sound silly, but maybe if you have a desk calendar, or if you use a calendar reminders in your phone, a paper calendar, maybe you have to write down, stop and take 4 deep breaths, something like that. Might sound silly, but sometimes we need that visual reminder to remind us, okay, I need to slow down. I need to take these deep breaths, keep my body calmer. Less stress is going to help a lot of things, and it's going to help possibly lower that blood sugar. Same with the exercise. Maybe I need to just write that down, plan it on my schedule. Sometimes starting your day, have a little journal where at the start of your day, maybe you write 2 goals each day. And then maybe one goal could be, breathe more, relax. Another goal could be 15 minutes of exercise, something like that. When we write things down, it helps us be more accountable. Again, we're trying to be positive. We're trying to believe in making these changes. So having that visual is helpful. Same with your phone. You can set a reminder in your phone. Maybe you just say, stop and take a deep breath. 15-minute walk. If your lunch break is 1 to 2, maybe you have that walk set for 1:30 to 1:45. So just kind of having those visuals is important. Okay, so that was a lot of just these self-management techniques and ways to kind of help you with getting on track and taking control of your diabetes. So I do want to open this for discussion, questions and answers. So what you would want to do is use the question tab on your toolbar. If you have a question that you want me to answer, type it in there. If you want to just share what diabetes management tips have worked for you, type it in there. I can, read that off and we can kind of discuss it. Okay, somebody asked a question. I'm just looking for it now. Okay, so what are your top 2 to 3 recommended books? So again, one place you can look is the American Diabetes Association. So it's a little hard to answer because there's so many different books. So it would depend what exactly you're looking for when it's coming to for a book. Just a general diabetes book, I would go to that diabetes.org website. I'm just checking right now. And then if you click on resources, you should be able to find there some different books and then what would be the topics you're looking for. That, or if it's something with diet, the American Dietetic Association or American Academy of Nutrition, it's called now. Their website is eatright.org, and you would be able to find good nutrition type books on there and certainly ones for diabetes too. Okay. All right. So I hope that helped. Or if you have like a specific topic you're looking for a book for, I can maybe answer that a little bit better. But definitely go to the diabetes.org. You could even just type in books and things will come up. So that's a good reliable source, to find good reading material. Okay, can you talk a little bit more about how aging impacts insulin production? Okay, very good question. So I touched on this a tiny bit, but basically it's not necessarily only age, but diabetes is a progressive disease. So as time goes on, either our body stops making insulin or the insulin production might be a little sluggish or a little slower, and what insulin does is insulin helps get the sugar out of our blood and it brings it to the cells. So insulin gets that sugar out of our bloodstream, brings it to our cells, and our body uses that sugar for energy. So when that insulin production becomes a little slower or a little sluggish, or there's not enough of it, there's not enough to get that sugar out of the blood. So then that's where we get these little bit higher blood sugar readings. So again, it can just be over time. So it's not necessarily just age. It could be over time of, how long somebody's had diabetes. So we never want to think like, I've heard people say, oh, so-and-so has the bad diabetes, they're on insulin. So it's really not the way diabetes works. It doesn't mean you have worse diabetes because you're on insulin. Somebody who's on oral medications could have higher blood sugar readings and quote unquote worse diabetes than someone who's on insulin. So again, it doesn't really work like that because it's a progressive disease. Somebody may end up on insulin because their body's not producing enough insulin on its own, but it doesn't mean that their diabetes is worse than someone who's not on insulin. So, couple things. If one reason that we always encourage people to check their blood sugars is we want to know, when is that blood sugar going up. If we're never checking and we're only getting our A1C every 3-4 months, we might find that, okay, oh, now the A1C is up, but we didn't really know that. We thought we were doing fine. So by checking those blood sugars at home, we can kind of see if there's any fluctuations. Did my blood sugar start to creep up? And now I need to do some of these things that we discussed tonight. Now I need to look at, why did it go up? So I'll have a good idea and I'll start working on it before I get to my next doctor's appointment. So, different changes, whether it's the less insulin production that's going on, or like we talked about, lifestyle changes, all of those things can affect that blood sugar. And again, everybody's body's different. So I'm not saying 100% everybody's body's going to start making less insulin. Everybody's body's different. The disease progresses differently in different people. So managing it, being, in control of this diabetes, being your own advocate, listening to webinars like this and wanting to get books and read up on things. That's a really great place to start, because you're making yourself aware of what needs to be done to help you keep this disease under control. So there's a lot of tools out there, and there's a lot of things you can do to keep your blood sugars under control. But your body does also play a role too. So, age and progression of the disease does play a role, but staying on top of it, checking your blood sugars, being in control is a really good place to start. Any other questions? Thank you, Jessie. Okay, so one thing that I do want to address is, I know we talked a little bit about exercise, or I talked a little bit about exercise, and we talk a lot about that as saying that's part of how I keep my blood sugar under control. We really look at diet, medication, and our exercise. Those three things we're always talking about need to work together to have our blood sugars under control. But what if you can't exercise? What if you have, a medical condition, or you're limited, something going on? Problem with your back, your knees, your legs, whatever it might be, arthritis. So, that becomes a little harder for people to think, everybody keeps telling me I need to exercise, but I have some limitations. So there are things that you can do. And again, everybody's different, but kind of think outside the box. So try not to think, oh, I can't go to the gym, or I can't run, or I can't walk for an hour, so I can't exercise. People keep telling me to exercise and I can't exercise. Think about what you can do, because any little bit more of movement in our body is helpful, and that can help with controlling, or helping to control, our blood sugar, being part of that puzzle that we're looking for. So a really good thing I talk to some of, my patients about are chair exercises, a low impact exercise that a lot of people can do. And again, depending what's going on with your body, but chair exercises can be really good. could be great for these winter months too. So maybe you normally go out and walk and you can't. But basically, you're just going to be using that chair. And there's a really good program on PBS called Sit and Be Fit. So it's Sit and Be Fit. So you can look it up on PBS channel, or you can also type that into your computer or your smartphone, and you'll find YouTube videos and things like that that you can follow. But it's a good low impact exercise. So you're basically, or if you didn't have access to that, maybe you're sitting in your chair, you're raising your legs up and down, 10 times each. You're doing some arm circles, you're doing bicep curls, things like that. We're using the chair, it's low impact, particularly if you had a back issue or maybe a knee issue. These are things that you can do. So I don't want you to think that exercise means you have to do, large amounts of cardio. But what we do want to do is get that body moving. So chair exercises are good, or think about it in smaller increments. Maybe you don't have an hour, or maybe an hour is too long. So that's why we say 15 minutes, taking a 15-minute walk on your lunch break, taking, 15 minutes at night after dinner. Maybe you then, once you do that, you can build on that. You could do 15 minutes at lunch, 15 minutes after dinner, and then maybe you build on that even more. You add a little more, maybe you do the 15-minute walk and the chair exercises, or maybe you do a little bit of light weights. If you don't have weights at home, you use 2 water bottles to do some arm circles. Maybe you add some lunges or some squats if you're able to do that. But just different ways to kind of think about, how can I get my body moving a little bit more? And that's another thing with age. I know at one point I mentioned with age, we lose some muscle mass and gain more fat. So what we can do is add a little bit of that resistance exercise in. So trying to build a little bit of muscle. The more muscle we have, the more calories we burn, and we want to try to make sure we're maintaining some of that muscle as we age. So again, resistance exercises, light weights, using your own body. If you're able to do push-ups, that's a good one, or um, even doing push-ups against the wall, squats, lunges, planks. Again, I know everybody's body's different and they might not be able to do all these exercises, but think of how you can adapt that, and just start with thinking of, okay, I'm going to start with 15 minutes and build on that. 15 minutes turns to 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes a day is perfect. If you're more fit and able to do more, you can just keep building on that too. All right, so if anybody has any other questions, just go ahead and type them into the question box. Or if there's something you want me to clarify, or if you don't have a full question and there's a topic, you can just type that in. Okay, I did want to mention that we do have some more upcoming live events. So if you're interested in any of these, let your diabetes coach know. You most likely got the email today about this webinar, so you would get the email for any of these future ones. But we have them once a month, and we have in January the new you for the new year. So, it's always great to start off the new year and get some great information, how to make your diabetes resolution stick. February, we have a great discussion on medications and tips that your doctor never told you. So medications we're on, maybe we don't know everything about them. So this is a really good webinar to attend. March, we're talking about focusing on what you can't eat and learn about what you can eat. So that's always a good one to hear. So healthy eating with diabetes. And then April, that one talks a lot about diabetes complications. So saying no to those complications, reducing the risks of diabetes, which we know diabetes can affect our kidneys, our nerves, our eyes. So we want to prevent all that. So that's a really great webinar coming up. Okay, so again, ask your coach about more of our events. Simply reply to one of the emails is another way. You can follow us on Facebook for more diabetes information. We have really great blogs. So you can go ahead and check us out on Facebook, and it's under Cecilia Health. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We appreciate your attendance, your participation. Thanks so much for those questions. And everybody have a good night and have a great holiday.